In this video, I will discuss step by step on how you could buy a BTO, starting from eligibility, how to apply for HFE letter, how the ballot system works, how to decide between getting an HDB or bank loan, and how to select a unit if you are lucky enough to get a queue number. First of all, let's talk about eligibility. Are you even eligible to buy an HDB BTO flat? To be eligible for an HDB BTO flat, applicants generally need to be at least 21 years old, Singapore citizen, and form a family nucleus. It could be married couples, with or without children, or with parents. You can also apply with your fiance, but note that you need to solemnize your marriage within 3 months from the completion of the flat purchase. HDB may request for a copy of your marriage certificate for verification. For singles, the minimum age is 35 if you are not married or divorced, and they can only apply for two-room flexi flats. But if you are an orphan, single parent, or widowed, then you only need to be at least 21 years old. Widowed here means that your marriage ended because your spouse passed away, so it's different from being divorced. Regarding citizenship, obviously at least one applicant must be a Singapore citizen, and the other can be either citizen or permanent resident if you apply as a family nucleus or a couple. Income ceilings do exist. Applicants must meet specific income requirements which vary depending on the flat type and location. For example, to apply for two-room flexi, the monthly income ceiling is $7,000, but to apply for 3-room, 4-room, or 5-room flats, couples or family total monthly income ceiling is $14,000. But if buying with extended or multi-generation family, the monthly income ceiling is $21,000. Note that applicants and occupiers must not own any private property, whether it is in Singapore or overseas, or have disposed of any within the last 30 months. Please see more details on eligibility on the HDB website as they have more information there. The next step is to apply for an HDB flat eligibility letter or HFE letter. Nowadays, before you apply for BTO or resale HDB, you are required to first apply for an HDB flat eligibility letter through the HDB flat portal by using your SingPass. This letter will clarify whether you are eligible to buy a flat, apply for the enhanced CPF housing grant, and take up an HDB or bank loan based on your data. Objectively, this is quite helpful to know what's relevant to you. Without this HFE letter, you seriously cannot apply for any BTO, even in non-mature areas. The watch out is, the queue to process an HFE letter can get long, especially if there is an upcoming BTO or SBF sales launch. It may take about a month for HFE letter to be issued after receipt of your application and supporting documents, but again, it could be longer during peak periods or if your documents have a lot of issues, so try to apply as early as you can. Once you got it, the HFE letter itself is valid for 9 months from the date of issue. So, if you are thinking to apply for a flat, even if you are not sure yet, just apply for HFE as soon as you can. It's better to have it ready rather than panic once the BTO or SBF sales week has started. Now let's talk about how do you apply for a BTO itself. Currently, BTO project launches only 3 times per year. It is typically only opens for about 1 week each time, and HDB only announced the month of the launch in advance, but unfortunately not the exact date, so it's best to always keep checking the news outlet and keep yourself updated. Once the application period is open, there's actually no point to apply as early as possible because the ballot system doesn't work as first come first served basis. The tips that I got from different sources is actually to wait towards the end of the sales week so you can monitor based on the application rate which project has lower competition and that you are still interested in. So for example, if you really want to buy in a mature town and it's flexible whether to buy in town A or town B, then just wait towards the end and see which one got the lower application rate, then apply for that town. As a refresher, if the application rate is showing as 3.7 for example, that means more than 3 applicants are eyeing for 1 unit for that type in that town. So the lower the application rate is, the better. The application rate report is available online and updated on daily basis, so just search by HDB application rate with the month and the year of the BTO launch and you should be able to find it easily. In general, non-mature areas tend to have lower application rate, which means you will have a bigger chance of getting a flat there. Once you have decided on which town you want to apply to, pay a $10 application fee to ballot for it during the BTO application window. It will take about 2 months to know whether your application is successful or not. To set your expectation, balloting for an HDB flat is a combination between your situation and luck. For example, if you are first-timer families with 3 kids, on paper, you will have a higher chance in getting a flat versus a single person, just based on the number of the flat allocation, additional ballot chances, etc. While some people get it on the first or second try, there are cases reported where couples tried more than 7 times to no avail. By the way, nowadays you can only apply for the flat type and town, but you cannot apply for a specific project. So for example, let's say there are 2 projects launched in Bukit Merah town. You can only pick 4-room Bukit Merah, but you cannot apply for a specific project in advance. If let's say you are lucky enough to get a decent queue number, the next thing you have to figure out is how to finance for the flat. This is of course assuming that you don't have enough cash to cover for everything, then you'll need a mortgage loan. You have to choose whether you want to get an HDB loan or a bank loan. First-timers typically go for an HDB loan since the down payment amount for HDB requires is less. But if you have enough savings, you can consider taking a bank loan. You can consider the interest rates, packages, etc. and compare it with HDB loans. I think another thing you should consider is how stable is your family's financial and income sources. If you are unsure, just take the loan from HDB because it is more conservative to do it that way. Why? Because for homeowners who are struggling to pay back their HDB loan, HDB has a bunch of financial assistance measures, and I would think generally banks would be less forgiving. Another consideration is you can later switch from an HDB loan to a bank loan, but you cannot switch from a bank loan to HDB loan. So if you are unsure, just get the HDB loan first and see how it goes. Either way, you will need to get some kind of loan approval in principle before you can book the flat. So you'll have to have all your loan documents in order to sign the lease agreement. For an HDB loan, there's no further action needed because the steps have been done when you obtain your HFE letter. The letter will tell you how much money HDB is willing to loan you. On the other hand, if you are planning to take a bank loan, then you should apply to get an in-principle approval or AIP letter from the bank. The documents required to apply for a mortgage loan can be slightly different from bank to bank, but in general, typically you will be required to provide these documents. Feel free to screenshot if you want to see more details. Remember to shop around to get best deal, as mortgage loan details are usually not posted online by the bank. There are also third parties who can help you to source for the best mortgage loan. Since this video is not sponsored, I'm not going to name names, but you can easily Google for their service. For those who are lucky enough to get a queue number, typically they will start to get called in to select a unit about a month after the release of the ballot results. Your queue number will determine your priority in choosing a unit. Interestingly, the number of people allocated queue numbers will exceed the number of units, as typically there are applicants who dropped out along the way. Speaking about dropping out, note that nowadays the penalty is getting harsher if you get a queue number but did not pick a unit at all. If you want to know more about what happens if you cancel an HDB flat application, check out my other video. I'll put the link in the description down below. Anyway, when showing up at HDB Hub to book your flat, don't forget to bring along your IC and income documents if you are taking a housing loan from HDB. I highly recommend already shortlisting your preferred blocks and units in order of priority and then pick what's still available. And you should have many multiple units in mind, as everybody wants to get the best unit. Maybe list down like 20 plus units. Remember that unit selection is very consequential, so it is worth doing enough due diligence. Once you have selected your unit, start the purchase process by paying an option fee on the spot. By securing the option to purchase or OTP, you get the right to purchase your flat. The amount which you have to pay depends on your flat type. Note that payment can only be made via nets and cannot be made by credit card or cash. If you are eligible for CPF housing grant, this is the time to apply for it as well. So make sure you download the application forms for enhanced CPF housing grant and bring them along to your flat booking appointment. Comment down below if you still have questions. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on my next video. Bye bye.